Alright, welcome back. So where we left off at in the last video is we actually make the arguments parser. Last couple videos we made the argument parser, the init, we made the instruction stack, we made the commands for the instruction stack, or how we're going to store or manage those commands, first in, first out. And also we made our actual command structure. Like I said before, there's no classes in C, so we use structs. So now, let's get started. So now, the next thing we want to do is we want to get our arguments being streamed into our instruction stack. So what we're going to do is let's alter this right here. Let's alter our argument parser. We already did the hard work, and one thing we have to do is, since we did that here, we're going to have to do something like this here, and we're going to have to go all the way down to here and build that parser right here. Okay. So let's inject into the parser because we got a couple steps. So we make the stack object. We memory allocate the object, then we put those arguments that we get from the outside into the instruction stack. So let's work on getting the arguments into the instruction stack. So the first thing we're going to do is, what I want to do is, let's take away this right here because we don't need this anymore. Let's validate that our code is still working, just to be legit, you know. Let's do our compile. Let's validate the code is still working. Oops. And there we go. Code is still working. All right. So now, we know that this section right here holds the actions. This section here holds the arguments. Okay. So let's get a vehicle going so we can have it where we can copy those commands that we need. We can copy those into an object and then send it to an instruction stack. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is, because we're going to be running this loop over and over again, we want to write the command and we want to do CMD. Now the next thing that we want to do is start copying this stuff over to the CMD. And the first thing is, I know that CMD.id, we can do that right off the back, and we can say like 1. X. Okay. And let's see what else in CMD that we can set up front. Now we have empty right here for the CMD. We don't really need empty, so I'm not going to use empty. As a matter of fact, nah, I'm not going to use the empty method. So let's go and take a look right here. Let's see where that empty is coming from. Empty is coming from the command. So the only thing I would really care about is arguments right here. So yeah, we do want empty. Let's keep empty. Okay. So we're gonna set cmd.empty equal to false now, because we want to know when we do the iteration. You'll see why over time why we did that. Okay. So right here, let's talk about the name. So we know that we want the name. Okay. So we want the name cmd.name, and we have to do a memory allocation for it. So let's do this. Let's do a memlock. First, we have to see what the data type is. So the data type is a char, and we want to cast it to a pointer, the way that name is a pointer. Okay, see how it's a pointer? And so what we want to do is let's do our memory allocation. And the trick that I'm going to do with the memory allocation is I'm going to get the memory size that we need from the object that we're going to copy into it. So let's just do this right here. Okay. So now we got CMD name set. So let's do something like this where we take CMD, let's take string copy. Usually I use the string copy S, but that'll be an enhancement over time because for security purposes. So don't do this at home. Okay. So use string copy s. Okay. But for simplicity, let's just do the string copy. So we're going to put our destination in here and our source that we want to copy into name, which should be the argv. Okay. So now what I want to do is this argument index. I'm going to set this argument index to 0. Okay. That was only for us to match the system's arguments, but we don't need to do that anymore. So now what we're going to do is we need to take, so after we do the x++, we need to take the cmd.args and we need to allocate that as well. Okay. So what we're going to do is, actually, do we need to allocate it? No, we don't. We just need to allocate the arguments inside of the CMD because those are pointers. CMD is not a pointer at this point. So args, so what we want to do is let's take the arg index, which is at 0. Okay. And since we're taking arg index at 0, we want to allocate that. So allocate that storage, that box. What's going to go in that box? So we do that same thing where we do a mem allocate. And remember, we want to do this right here, where we take this and we turn it into a char star, and then we do the size of. Let's take the size of, and you guessed it, the size of will be the actual argv right here. So the argv that we're going to use right here is going to be argx. Okay, so let's take argx right here, because we do a pre-check to see if argx for the next one, which we increment right here, is an actual argument. So that's why we take x. And then after we validate that, we do an x++, and then we use that next argument. Okay. So now you guessed it. Let's do the string copy, and let's copy our source. Our destination, and copy our source into our destination, which would be the argv. Okay. Right here, and let's kill that right here. And so these printouts right here, we're going to do something else in order to see those printouts. So, but I'll leave them here just in case you want to troubleshoot. So now, the next thing we want to do is we want to validate what's in CMD. Okay, so let's do a print command. And with the print command, we'll pass in CMD. And so now what we do is we take that CMD and let's prototype it. We're not returning nothing. And then we do a command CMD. Okay? And then we're going to take this. That's going to bug me. So now we're going to take this right here. And when we want to print it out, see at the end it's going to print everything out, right? Let's make sure we got everything in order. Let's make sure this is in the for statement. So let's see. We got the for statement right here. Let's make sure everything is aligned. Let's see where this for statement ends. Okay, we got the for statement right there. We got the while statement. We got the if statement. Okay, so we're good. All right, so let's paste this down here and let's add some logic into it. All right. So what we want to do is let's do our print. Let's do our print f. And let's kill this a little bit. Let's do our print f, and we want to print out the name. So let's do a let's say action. And we'll put the action here. and we say s, and then let's put something like cmd.name. All right, and let's tab this right now. Let's tab it. And then what we want to do is let's copy this right here, and actually let's do this. Let's do our for statement, and just so the iterator won't keep grabbing the size of the arguments, what we want to do is do an int arg size. We call it arg size, which equal to 0. Okay. Actually, we wouldn't put equal to 0. Let's put cmd dot size. Okay. So we do arg size. So we're gonna make some adjustments. Okay. Because we want that arg size. Checking if null is not very reliable. So what I want to do is track that arg size. So right here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go all the way up to our data type and put in here arg size. And I'm gonna redo that too. And we say equal to 0. And let's take this right here and go all the way down to where we're actually putting the arguments in. So what we're going to do is we're going to say cmd.argsize plus plus. Okay. So it's going to increment every time we put the arguments in there for the arg size. So now what we're going to do is take this in our for statement here, and we're going to change this to this right here. Okay. So now we got our argument size. How many arguments we have in here, because we keep track of it. So let's do an int idx equal to 0, and we'll do idx less than, got a new keyboard, less than the arg size, and we'll do idx plus plus. And so what we're going to do is now we're going to print out the CMD. So let's print f, and we're going to take this and we're going to say arg. We're going to action and arg. So we're going to go arg, and then let's put the number in there. Okay, equal to this. And then now let's take this right here and put the CMD. Let's put the IDX in, and then let's put the CMD in. CMD dot args, and it'll be this index right here for that tracker. Okay. And we're going to actually put a tab behind that, and then at the end of it, so we can say which record is what, we're going to do a print f, and we're going to do something like this, and let's see if it works for us. Okay. So now let's do a compile. Let's see if I got it right. See if I messed anything up, and let's give it a run. Okay, so see how we have our actions here, and then we have our arguments here. That's what we want. Okay, so we got arg 0, 1, and 2. Okay, so I want to make sure this is correct too. So see how it keeps giving a new line? I don't want that new line right there. I want to validate that it is what it is. Okay, so let's do this. Let's recompile it, do it again. I want it all on the same line. Okay, there we go. Arg 0, arg 1, arg 2, everything looks good. We're gathering everything. Okay. So now, let's talk about the transition from the commands to the stack. Okay, so we got the command parser right here. And in the command parser, we are going to do something like void push. Let's see. Yeah, we'll do a push command. So on this push command, what we want to do is we want to, by reference, and we want to do it with the CMD. CMD. Okay. All right. So now that we got that going, what we're going to do is we're going to copy this right here. And we're going to take this right under the print command. Let's put this here. And we're going to take this out. This can go as is because it's already going in as a reference by reference. And then this right here can go like this. Okay. So after we got our push in there, okay, what we're gonna do is actually make our push function. Okay. So on our push function, we're actually dealing with the stack, right? So we have to know if we have an array of commands, okay? So since we're dealing with an array, we want something to find the next available index. So we'll be doing something like this, int index equal to 0. And so then let's do a while statement. So let's go while instruction stack. And since this is a pointer, this is how we access that pointer. Okay. There's another way you can do it too. So commands, and what we're gonna do is put index dot empty. This is why we did the empty. And we're gonna do index plus plus. So what we're gonna do here though is we're gonna negate this, okay? Because empty is always true, so we want it to be false, okay? I mean, we want empty to say, okay, I am empty. This is the next index, okay? So now what we want to do is let's write our logic to actually do our memory allocation, okay? So the first thing we want to do is this current index right here. We know a couple things that we know off the back is once we process this, let's make sure this is no longer empty, which equals false, okay? Because it's going to what we're doing right here is negating the current value. So it was true here. So now we do it as false, okay? So let's determine what else we can name in here. We can do ID. We can put the ID as the index, which the index. Let's see what else we can pull from here right off the back that we know that we can do up front. All right, so let's go with the actual name. So the technique we use with everywhere else is the same way we do the name. So right here, I like processes to be readable. So I want false to be last, because if something breaks in here, I don't want it to be marked as false and maybe get overwritten or hit an exception. Okay. So index.name equals to, and we're gonna say char star, and then let's do our memory allocation right here. And what we're gonna do is it's gonna be the size of, yes, you guessed it, the CMD name. So CMD dot name, and then we close that off. All right. And so now let's do our copy. Let's do our string copy, and take our string copy, do something like this. Where we go, moving a little too fast. Okay. Take our string copy, and we have our destination that we want to go to, and then we have our source. That's going to be the CMD dot name. All right. So now let's get into more of the complex part. So what we want to do is we want to iterate through all those arguments, but at the same time, we want to be able to tell if we can put those arguments in there and if it's allocated. So the first thing we have to do is the same thing we did here with the args, but it'd be a little bit different. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this right here, we're going to copy it, but we're going to add a star star. And what we're going to do is take this right here, we're going to turn it into a char. And then what we're going to do is, after we turn that into a char, we're going to do .args. Okay. So this is for the entire arguments, all of the arguments that we're going to do. Okay. This is for that whole thing. All right. So now we want to start loading the arguments. So the first thing we want to do is, we know that the command has a argument size, okay, arg size. So right here, when we have that command right here, we know we can do something like this, where we can do commands dot arg size equal to cmd dot arg size. And so we're going to use this as an iterator too. So what we're going to do is we're going to call idx int idx. We'll call it arg idx. So we'll know what it is. Equal to, no, we just do size. We'll do arg size is equal to, this would be the quickest way right here, the argument size, okay? So the reason why I don't do that size in the for statement is because every time that for statement runs again, it's going to try to process that size again. So we're just going to leave it like this, okay? We don't want it to keep getting the value. We want it to have a static value. So let's do a for int, let's go arg index, idx, arg idx equal to 0, and let's do a copy to speed this up, and we're going to say arg idx less than arg size. Okay, and then we're going to do a arg idx plus plus. So now we got that. All right. So now, what we'll need to do is, we will need to take this right here, actually take this right here, okay, and we paste it in here. The reason why we do that is because we want the arguments now. So in the arguments, the index, this arg idx, which will go into here, okay. So now let's allocate it, equals to, it will be a char, right? Oops. Be a char. Then let's do the mem allocation. And what we're going to do for the mem application is we're going to do size of. Remember, they both have the same sizes, right? So cmd dot args and the arg index, okay? Because they're going to be on the same positioning, so we can get away with that. It's an algorithm, right? Be right every time. So now let's take our string copy. Oops. I think it'd be faster if I typed it. So let's take our string copy right here, and we're going to take this right here, and what we're going to do is take this right here, and now we copied the arguments into the stack, and we got one more thing, okay? So we already set the argument size, which we can just keep it this way because we set it in here. But if we really want to go from a process perspective and make sure that everything was added, we can do something like this. And then what we can do is just remove this right here, because we want to know how many was added, okay? So whenever we look in our debugger, we know how many was added. So this argument was added to this, this, and this, instead of assuming that it was added. So we do have the argument size of what's actually in there and not using a shadow copy. It's like a second checksum. So now we got that. Okay. So now let's give it a run. Let's make sure we got everything. So let's give it a run. Oh, matter of fact, let's check our indexes too. So let's do a print F right here and see if our indexes are jumping, because that'll be an indication of that we actually stored everything properly and it's moving to the next index. So we'll do current index, okay, and we'll put index over here, and let's put our replacement string in here, something to be replaced, and let's do this right here, okay, and let's make sure this push command is injected into here, which is good. So let's give it a run. Let's see if I jacked up anything first. So our compiler tells us. Okay, so look at that. Looks like things are changing. Current index for that first record, and then the current index for that second record. So now, let's validate. Let's do a little bit more validation on that stack. Let's do a print stack or something like that. So when we want to do that print stack, let's do something like this. Let's do a void, and let's do a print stack. Okay. So with the print stack, let's just pass it in as the, because we're already going by reference. Okay. And what we want to do is take this right here, and we want to take this, do something like this. Okay. Because I don't want to make a shadow copy of this. I want it to be the actual copy to save some space. So we're using the same copy at all times in the life cycle. And let's take this over here. Let's copy it. And let's see. Let's add it down here. All right. So now we got this right here. And so what we can do is we can do a while statement. We can do a while instruction. Oops. Instruction stack. We can do commands, possibly. And we have multiple commands, I would think. Okay. So we would need an index. Okay. Let's put our index in there now. Okay. So let's take the index, int index is equal to 0. And we do our while statement right here. Dot empty. We'll go right here. I'm not gonna check it for null, which would be a good idea to check it for null, because if there's nothing in there, or some indication that nothing is in there, because we already allocated, so it won't equal up to null. It'll always show that there's something in there. So what we'll do is, after we do this, let's say make sure I got that second pair of brackets right up in here. And I'm kind of not liking this. Okay, I'll just leave it the way it is. Forget it. There we go. So it can look pretty. So now what I can do is we can do our print F. Okay. So our print F, the first thing we're going to do is, for our print F, we're going to do a print F. Oops. New keyboard. And I'm going to take my commands right here, and I'm going to do a dot name, and we're going to tag this as an action. And right here, string, let's hit a tab for this right here. All right. Let's take this, put it here, and boom. I just want to do enough evidence that the stack is loaded. Okay. So now, another thing that we have to do is, let's do our int, and let's do our index for our arguments. Let's go arg idx. Okay. And when we do our arg rdx is equal to 0, let's do a for statement. And let's just call it let's do our size. Arg size. Okay. Equals to CMD. I mean, not CMD, but it'll be this instruction index right here. Dot arg size. You guessed it. And so what we do is we do an int arg idx equal to 0, and then we do a arg idx is less than arg size, and then we'll do a arg idx plus plus. Let's take this and let's do a printf and we're going to do something like this where we say arg, and we're going to give it this right here, and something like this where we're going to take that there, and then what we're going to do is take this right here, and we're going to do a dot args right here. Take this right here, and boom. All right. Once it's done and it's all on one line, so what I want to do is let's do our tabbing again. Once it's done and it's all on one line, I want to do a print f, and I want to do something like this. So let's see if I broke anything. It's too good to be true for it to compile the first time. So let's see. It's good so far. Okay, got kind of nervous. Okay, so let's give it a run. Okay, so the problem that we did right here was, I know exactly what the problem is. So let's stop this right here, and I'll show you what the problem is. So the problem is this index right here. Once we did this index and once it's done, we need to do a index plus plus. I always do that. Never fails. And look at that. Unresponsive. Terminals may stop working. Let's restart the host. So that's one thing you don't want to do. Let's do a new terminal. Let's see if I get lucky. All right. So let's recompile it. So be careful of those infinite loops. Okay, so see, we have it. So we got the action here, we got the args right there, which is the last thing we printed out, which everything is working now. We got everything good. Let's do a review of the stuff we added. So we added the print command, we added the push command to print the stack. We made sure that we actually using our references properly, where we can instantiate here, and it's still the same memory address, and we store those values, and everything looks good. My next video will be making the calculation engine. So this is kind of like after the logical infant structure of your program, then some business logic is next. So in this case, business logic is next for how do we, what will be our engine to give us a reply to the CLI. So that's it, and thank you.